Assassin's Creed Syndicate is a game that does a lot of things right and a lot of things wrong. The more I delved deeper into Syndicate, the more I understood the love and hate cults that often debate about how great or terrible this game really is. I've been through some low valleys and high peaks during my playthrough, but does Ubisoft Quebec ultimately do justice to the Assassin's Creed's name? Unfortunately, the answer is not that simple. Welcome to Rugged Pro Gaming, where I display a live representation of my review score, which will increase or decrease in tandem with my verbal pros and cons. As always, we will begin with a perfect 10 and adjust accordingly throughout the review, but enough explaining, it's time to shake, rattle, and roll.
London must be freed, to provide a better future for all of its citizens.
Well, thank goodness the Council saw reason and sent you to aid us.
Yes. Thank goodness.
Assassin's Creed Syndicate follows the tumultuous story of twin assassins Jacob and Evie Fry, who fight to rid London of Templar rule and ensure that yet another mystical artifact of Eden doesn't fall under their control. The approach to the story is built upon the same foundations as previous titles in the franchise. It's pretty much a pyramid scheme of death. Kill the less important baddies, and then kill the slightly more important baddies, and then kill a couple of super baddies until you get to the ultimate baddie, all the while tracking down a piece of Eden as you go along your murderous rampage. The same common tropes of the series plotlines are found here, but Syndicate takes a left where all other previous titles took a right by having two main characters, each with different personalities, and each embodies a different set of values and beliefs. Jacob is determined to liberate London by assassinating every head Templar in control of various industries within the city. This turns out to be the direct opposite of his twin sister's Evie agenda, who believes that finding the piece of Eden should be their priority target. Ubisoft took this opportunity to lead players down two separate rabbit holes. Jacob's mission tree involves dismantling the corrupt Templar Order by carrying out the bulk of the main story assassinations, while Evie embarks on her own set of missions revolving around finding the piece of Eden and undermining the Templar Order discreetly. On paper, this sounds like an inviting way to tell its tale, but in reality, it causes more separation than integration. I found myself very limited in terms of connection with the characters since I was always being pushed back and forth between their different storylines. I didn't get the proper time to invest in either character, which left me feeling pretty stale about both. Furthermore, the pair continuously bickers with one another, tearing down and demeaning their respective crusades. Now, some of these squabbling interactions offer up some of the best, most joyful scenes the game has to offer.
That's it, Evie. We can rally them to our side.
Oh, like the way that you rallied those card players at the Open Tavern into the river.
Oh, that was different. They beat me at whist. I can see it now. We'll call ourselves the Rooks.
You were never good at chess either.
They did make me feel, however, that I was constantly at odds with myself, being inevitably chewed out for each bit of progress I had made.
I didn't come to London to hunt curios.
First understand the dance, only then become the dancer.
Oh, so you're taking over where Father left off.
Someone has to.
For long-standing fans of the series, Evie's story arc does give some insight to the present-day events taking place outside of the Amethyst. And although it's not a main focus in the game, it's nice to see that there is still some service being done for fans that are invested in the series lore. That being said, however, I did find myself gravitating more towards Jacob's story path, largely due to the main villain, Crawford Starrick. Starrick is a righteous lunatic. Here's a guy that can shoot a man in cold blood and then mention how justice, not vengeance, is a fair and lawful structure of society that needs to be obeyed.
Must wear a mask.
Mr. Starrick.
I told you not to disturb me!
Your passion is most welcome, Miss Thorne. But we cannot let our emotions disrupt the lawful structures of society. If we do that, the enemy wins.
This contradiction was not a misstep by Ubisoft, but instead was a necessary and deliberate look inside the mind of a madman. Even so, the game attempts to have you second guess whether he is in fact mad, showing the player the fallout of your actions, consequences that Starrick had somewhat foreseen and warned of. Those type of mind games is what really makes Starrick's character the star of the show here, but Syndicate suffers from not giving Starrick more screen time. This leads to one of the main issues for the game: pacing. Starrick is seen briefly, then not seen again for hours, only to appear and disappear yet again. More so than that, some of the story missions feel out of place or completely unnecessary. Whether you're slowly escorting royalty through the slums for their own personal amusement, or playing crazy taxi chauffeuring NPCs to pick up and drop off points. The story at times feels like LA rush hour traffic or a heart monitor going 250 beats per minute. Constant stopping and going, or ups and down in case you missed that.
You seem to have made an unscheduled stop.
The story may deal with pacing issues, but the presentation of Victorian era London looks great here. Even as the game has aged graphically, the city still takes on a life of its own. The architecture is nicely chiseled whether you're scaling the London City Bank or running through the slums. On foot, tiny details are showcased that are easily appreciated. After rain, you'll see glistening puddles of water with wet autumn leaves clumping on the ground. In early morning, the city is shrouded in beautiful mist that slowly dissipates as the day goes on. Also, while traversing around the rooftops, the scenery is equally as appealing as you can see the remnants of the Industrial Revolution pumping smoky glory into the atmosphere. Music, however, doesn't play a huge role, and it's unfortunate because when the music does begin to play, it's a beautiful orchestra that fits right into the Victorian setting. During my playthrough, the only times I had music kick in was when synchronizing a viewpoint, and as quickly as the music appeared, it abruptly ends. I couldn't find anything in the settings that would have caused this, but in terms of ambiance, my time with the game mostly consisted of the clacking of boots on clay tile roofing. I'm not sure if this was a bug on my end or a design choice, but it was unfortunate nonetheless. While the city of London is an impressive representation, the inhabitants is where things fall a bit short. The city feels lived in from afar as you see boats constantly passing by, crimes being committed, groups of people waiting for the next train or shopping at the local market. It all appears to be a well-oiled machine. Where it stumbles, however, is the lack of character models. If you look closely enough, actually you don't have to look closely at all, you'll quickly realize that the same models are constantly being duplicated. It becomes even more apparent when facing enemies. You swear the entire Blighter's gang was birthed by the same man and woman, intent on multiplying their bloodline to eventually rule the world. There's only one brute enemy model who looks like every character that Michael Chiklis has ever played. If you ever see a Blighter sniper on a roof, it's the same female character model each and every time. I can understand Ubisoft trying to get away with duplicating civilian NPCs, especially with a setting that is as populated as London, but there should be definitely more diversity when it comes to the enemies in the game. When in combat, there's always a distracting white outline showing you who you are targeting, but it's completely unnecessary and doesn't do the game any favors in terms of visual fidelity. But speaking of combat, let's see how the gameplay holds up. When playing Syndicate, it's easy to see that the gameplay is a mixed bag, and that bag has more rotten apples than it does fresh. When you think of Assassin's Creed, one thing that is bound to come to mind is combat, and the combat in Syndicate gets dry fast. One of the main setbacks for the combat is simply the time period the game takes place during. In 1868 London, you couldn't simply walk around with swords and axes strapped to your back. So instead, Ubisoft was forced to use weapons that could easily be concealed from the police. There are 4 total weapon types: kukri knives, cane swords, brass knuckles, and pistols. The main issue here is that they all play exactly the same outside of a few small differences in stats. Using a cane sword and using brass knuckles have the exact same mechanics. Those combat mechanics are also not very well done. The combat is nothing more than button mashing. You continuously mash the attack button until you need to counter an attack or dodge an incoming bullet. There's no way to guard, roll, or any other manual defense. You can only defend yourself when prompted by pop-ups. So essentially you just attack until told otherwise.
I was hoping for a challenge.
The best part of combat come with the awesome multi-takedowns, however, and they require some premeditation and a little bit of luck on enemy placement, but stringing together a few of them to clear out a mob was undeniably satisfying. These never get old. The game also offers 3 skill trees to help mold Jacob and Evie to your desire. The skill trees could have been used to deepen the combat system, but instead it was a swing and a miss. Although Evie's skill tree has an awesome late game skill allowing her to become invisible when standing still, the rest of the skill trees are mainly passive skills that don't alter the mechanics of the combat in any way. For that reason, I found it difficult to care about the leveling system much at all, and for someone who typically creams himself at the sight of skill trees, this was disturbing for me. As the combat became repetitive, I naturally found myself controlling Evie more often, going the stealth route in almost all of my encounters. This was definitely my preferred way to play, as the change in environments kept my stealthy approach fresh each and every time. I also began incorporating the different items on my gear belt more often, specifically my throwing knives, smoke bombs, and hallucinogenic darts, which made enemies attack each other. In these moments, you truly feel like an assassin more than any in hand-to-hand combat. In order to really excel at stealth, however, you have to be able to traverse the terrain in a quiet, undetected manner. That's not always the case in Syndicate. There are definitely moments where everything goes perfect and the character reacts exactly how I planned, and the results are beautiful. Jumping between moving boats while crossing the River Thames without getting wet left me with an uncontrollable shit-eating grin. Then there are other times where the character does the exact opposite of what you wanted. It causes you to be spotted or even fail an objective. I can deal with user error. If I screwed up, so be it. But when it's the game that's cheating, as I would have called it 15 years ago, that's where things get unfair. Another unfair mechanic in the game is the zip line. Being able to cross large areas unseen or zip upwards to the nearest rooftop is completely unfair to all of the enemies in the game. The zipline is a powerful service tool as it cuts out a lot of the monotony of running from point A to point B. The only downside to the zipline is that it sometimes does not shoot exactly where you want, which could be somewhat troublesome depending on the circumstance that you're in, and also at times it seems to reach obstacles hundreds of yards away, while other times it can't access a ledge that is right across the street. As a whole, however, it is the best way to travel across the map and gain leverage over enemies, and at times it's an even faster travel option than fast traveling. The map offers a substantial amount of content such as collectibles, hidden tombs, and side quests that include some real-life historic figures such as Charles Dickens and Alexander Graham Bell. Also, a nice addition to the map is the capturing of districts, each under control of a specific Templar agent. Capturing these districts are purely optional and require you to complete certain side activities such as liberating child labor factories or clearing out a Templar stronghold. Once you complete enough of these activities in a specific district, you're able to have a gang war for control of the territory, and these activities are some of the best that the game has to offer. Having an all-out brawl with at least 20 NPCs at once is chaotically pleasant, and the mini-boss finale to each gang war offers up a nice challenge. Unfortunately, some of the side activities that have to be completed to unlock the gang wars are absolutely brutal, and feels more like filler opposed to actual content aimed at appealing to the player. For instance, bounty hunt missions specifically are some of the worst time-consuming missions in any game I have ever played. Sneaking into an area to kidnap a target and then throw him into a horse carriage and race him to a location was just no fun at all for me. It was more of a chore. The horse carriages control like cars with nitrous as you ram into other carriages twisted metal style. I have to say the boost mechanic and beating the poor horsey to death for more speed also left a bad taste in my mouth.
Move it! Faster!
This is an Assassin's Creed game, so of course horses aren't the only thing being beat to death. Obviously, you'll get your hands dirty with some good old-fashioned assassination missions, and during these missions you're given a handful of optional objectives to help assist with your assassination. Do you want to break free the prisoners to create a diversion? Convince the disgruntled maid to give you the key to unlock all doors? Or maybe you'll want to take advantage of a unique kill opportunity, allowing you to dispatch of your target in the most elegant way possible. It's definitely akin to Hitman how you can approach these missions with different choices, and although the amount of choice you have is limited, it's a welcome addition that adds various solutions to fit most playstyles. Unfortunately, however, no matter how great these missions are, the game is plagued with bugs that are nothing less than infuriating. Games aren't usually perfect, and most games will have quality issues, but Assassin's Creed Syndicate has Motel 6 level of bugs. I can look past most bugs, especially those that don't affect my gameplay. A random spark of electricity hovering for no apparent reason? I can live with that. The same character showing up at the same location at once? I mean, it's pretty weird, but it's not game breaking. Or even this. This is fine as well. I can live with these things, but there are bugs that affect the quality of the game and also cause you to waste your time. There is nothing more frustrating than having to restart a mission because the game doesn't function properly, and unfortunately these bugs really hold Syndicate back.
Sounds absolutely ridiculous.
It does sound ridiculous, but it's the truth. For instance, chase this sniper across rooftops without killing her. Should be no problem. But she fell off the roof and killed herself 3 times, causing mission failure before the game finally allowed her to reach the determined destination. Counter these upcoming attacks from Evil Templar. But guess what? Your counter button doesn't work anymore, sweetheart. Stand there and die, asshole. Chase down this district boss after your hard work of dismantling their burrow to unlock that awesome gang war activity. Oh, guess what? She got ran over by the carriage that she was supposed to escape in. Gang war completed before it even starts. There's also random bugs such as enemies transporting to your location when you try to assassinate them from above, getting stuck on ledges, or the game randomly inputs invisible walls which doesn't allow you to jump on or over certain ledges. The double assassination detection is hair thin and only triggers if you have perfect placing. But luckily the AI is legally blind, so you usually get away with picking off the next guy as well. For some insane reason, you can't kidnap or knock out an enemy if you are on a set of stairs. The list goes on, and as you experience more issues with bugs, it really impacts your desire to extend your playthrough with the game. Even 5 years later, it's really a shame that these bugs still do exist at this extent. Assassin's Creed Syndicate wants to be a great game. It wants to invite newcomers to the series while staying true to its roots for loyal fans. Instead, with every step forward, it takes 2 leaps backwards. Pacing issues, uninspired repetitive combat, frustrating bugs, and a main campaign that stumbles through its storytelling takes front stage. Fans of the series should give this game a chance, if anything, for its continuation of the present day story arc. But for potential newcomers to the series, it's best to leave 1868 London in the past.
I never thought of it that way. I suppose deep down we all just want to be loved.
Just so. Here, have a sweetie.
Shallow inch below the town. Underground, underground, leave them underground.